Welcome back into the Daily Dose. My name is Jeff Hansen. I am your host. And as always, the show is brought to you by Give'emHellBrigham.com and by CougarSportsInsider.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Thank you so much for your support so far. If you haven't done so yet, please take a second, subscribe to the channel, maybe like this video, leave a comment. All of those actions help us out a ton. We appreciate your support. Thank you for your continued support here at the Daily Dose. Today, I want to hone in on a couple of comments that I've been told recently from high school coaches and some of the more influential high school coaches across the state of Utah. Over the last few weeks, I have been, obviously doing the recruiting coverage that I normally do, but also preparing for the upcoming high school football season here in the state of Utah, as I do a lot of work for KSL and Rewind Sports on the high school football front. And as I have been preparing and having conversations with folks around the state, I'm able to have some pretty good relationships with some pretty good, pretty influential people, coaches, parents, whatever. And I was told a couple of things regarding BYU's recruiting efforts that obviously the people who told me will remain anonymous, but I want to hone in on a couple of comments that I've been told in recent weeks. The first looks at the former defensive coaching staff. And the comment is close to verbatim as I can remember, was effectively, if a player had a competing scholarship offer, most of that defensive staff didn't have any interest in recruiting. Now, obviously, there's plenty of exceptions to that rule. BYU landed enough players who had competing scholarship offers on the defensive side of the ball that we can point to enough evidence to say, okay, that's probably a little hyperbolic from that anonymous coach. However, if we look at especially the last class in 2022, the last full class where the staff thought they would be back for the next year, the following year, 16 defensive players did not have a competing scholarship offer. That kind of leads a lot of credence to this thought from a coach that if BYU's defensive recruits had competition, if there was any effort, any recruiting that had to be done, the defensive coaching staff of the past really shied away. And as a result, we saw what we saw on the field. We saw lots of walk-ons playing, and walk-ons are great. You want to have a strong walk-on program. What you don't want is to have to depend on walk-ons to play and make an impact because you failed so bad on your scholarship players. And that's exactly what we saw. And that was tough. You saw a lot of players, former offensive linemen who had to flip to the defensive side of the ball. And again, that isn't inherently a bad thing. That happens at every team in the country. But the rate that it was happening at BYU was kind of astonishing. So I tend to believe that there's at least mostly truth to that comment from that high school football coach that BYU's former defensive coaching staff shied away from recruiting competition, and they went and found the guys that would come to BYU quickly, immediately, and then they could check a box and move on. Now, a different high school coach said to me about the new defensive coaching staff and said, there is not a defensive coaching staff in the state of Utah that has recruited the state of Utah who has more positive momentum going for them than BYU. Guys like Jay Hill were singled out. I think we all know that Jay Hill is a phenomenal recruiter. He immediately commands a room, especially a room full of football coaches, and there's a ton of respect as soon as he walks into the door. But another couple of names who were singled out, one kind of surprised me. Sione Puha doesn't surprise me, but he was singled out as a bona fide difference maker on the recruiting trail for BYU. The next was Justin Enna. I didn't have no hopes for Justin Enna. I didn't know what to expect from Justin Enna. But this particular high school football coach said to me, Justin Enna brings more life to the recruiting trail than I've seen from BYU in years. Justin Enna is personable. These players, they like him. They like learning from him. He's tough, and they can see that when they go to practices. He's tough on his players. He rides his guys, but then after practice is over, he's there for them, working through techniques and doing a lot of things. If you think of Justin Enna, he was a rising star in the college coaching ranks. He was an assistant at Utah. He was a very young defensive coordinator at Utah State. And then he got in with Gary Anderson at Utah State, and things didn't go so well. Gary Anderson's second tenure at Utah State was not great, to say the least. And I think Enna, his career was derailed, and I think there were a lot of factors, both on field and off field, that played a role there. Enna had to kind of regather himself. He went to the FCS ranks, ended up at San Diego State for a year. Now it seems like he's back on the track that he was on 5 or 6 years ago before he took that detour with Gary Anderson. And if BYU gets that Justin Enna, they have an absolute home run coaching linebackers. And if you listen to what the coaches on the high school ranks are saying about his recruiting efforts, about his energy, and about the way he interacts with players at practice, well, this might be true. Justin Enna might be that guy going forward. But the larger point remains this defensive coaching staff today does not shy away from competition. That means that BYU is going to miss on more guys than they get. Like, that's just the nature of recruiting. You offer 200 players, you only sign 25. You're going to lose more often than you win on the recruiting trail. It's kind of like baseball. You can hit 300, but that means you didn't get on base 7 out of 10 times. That's a little bit like what recruiting is like. And that's kind of an adjustment for BYU fans. BYU fans are used to offering players, and then they tend to get those players because they're not offering players that BYU was having to compete for all the time. That's changing, and it's going to be a different mindset, different expectation for BYU fans. But hopefully, it leads to different results on the field for BYU. I don't know, crazy philosophy, but maybe recruiting really good football players will pay off for them. We'll have to see. Thank you so much for your support of the channel. Like I say, if you have not done so yet, please subscribe. It helps us out a ton. And until next time, give them hell.